you know where the opportunities are and what the opportunities really are, because that's I think the most fundamental part of innovation. We're going to talk about the opportunity detection kit, which is something that has been designed as a tool for innovators to know what they are really looking for and what the users of their innovation are really looking for. Because this is a point that often goes wrong. You think of something that is absolutely brilliant and it's a great innovation, and then nobody wants to use it. How often does that happen? And how can you be sure that you don't lose time or energy innovating something, inventing something that nobody really wants? Let's start off with an example of something that went wrong, like an innovation where the designers thought, well, we have it here, and somehow it didn't work. Annemarie Mink is here with me. She's from the Delft University, and Benjamin Mull, he works in Delft also. Tell me, what's a great example of things that went wrong?
Well, my specific field is design for development, so designing products for cultures abroad, development projects. And a lot of projects are concerned with stoves or sanitation. And there are examples that a toilet is used as a storage facility, or and not as a toilet anymore, or mosquito nets that are used to play football, or as a fishing net. So they were intended for different purposes than what they are actually used for.
Why would you use a toilet as a storage system for your books or toys or whatever? Why would anyone do that?
Well, if it doesn't fit your culture or your habits, or a toilet like a box where you can go to the toilet, it's not in your house. In the night, it can be dangerous, especially for women, to go out to such a toilet facility, or it's just not being used anymore, and then people use it in a different way.
Because that's something very cultural, how you go to the toilet, where you want it to be, how you want the toilet to look. That's really a cultural question. So in this particular case, the innovator should have gone there first and looked how the people do it before innovating anything.
Yeah, and still with all these projects, people go there and people talk to the target audience, and but it doesn't always fit with their actual needs or wants.
This is something that happens very often. Benjamin, you went to Colombia to research prosthesis for people that have lost their leg, for instance. What did you research?
Yes, we started with a project about prosthesis, and we had an example from India where prostheses were provided for free to people, and we thought we can maybe do a same kind of company in Colombia, but then we figure out that in Colombia cheap or free prostheses are related to not good quality, so people didn't want a cheap prosthesis.
You have to make it expensive, otherwise people think it's not worthy.
Yeah, that could be a solution, because quality is very important in Colombia, and quality is are high prices. So that was the way they argue often.
And how did that work in India, for instance? Because there the same problem. It needs to be innovated. Prosthesis, people need it there too. Do they also want the more expensive one, or is it a different culture?
In India, it's a little bit different. People want a prosthesis because they want to work again, to be accepted in the social lives. So they want a real fake leg. So a prosthesis that really looks like their own leg, so other people will accept them. So it's really something social inclusion.
Because it's also, it's not just a financial loss not to have a leg, it's also a social loss. You're not a worthy person because you don't have 2 legs and 2 arms, and so people will not regard you as a full person.
Yeah, and the thing is that you're not able to work anymore, so you do not bring income to the family. Or so we interviewed some people who lost their leg in India, and in one instance, the children abandoned their father because he was a burden to their family instead of providing for them. And in another case, the father-in-law came to take his daughter back because she was married to someone without a leg. So in that sense, he could not provide for her anymore.
Now, what's the kit about? Because these are very different examples. How can you design one tool that helps in all these cases to know what you're looking for exactly and to do your research more properly? What is it? What does it look like, the kit?
Well, the reasons behind the kit is that as product designers, you have to investigate your potential users in a very quick way. You don't have time to spend like a year in the field to get to know your potential users. So you have to make a rapid assessment. And what we often do is look a bit too narrow-minded towards the product and the things closely related to the product. And what the kit is for is to look broader, to look at every aspect of a human life and the well-being of people, to find everything that is relevant for the product, also the things that are not like very clear from the start. So we start with a timeline where you just ask people about their daily life and what they do. And we developed a set of themes, for example, safety or accommodation or health, mobility. And if someone says, like, I get up in the morning and I take some food, then we ask, nutrition, what do you eat? What is how many times a day do you eat? So we have a lot of example questions that you can use to gather insights about people's lives. And in the end, after you discussed with people about their lives, so it's not like in the interview style, but really starting a conversation. And in the end, they can. We have an exercise that you can prioritize the different themes to what is most important to your life.
So is it like more like a questionnaire? You have various questionnaires in there's the Socrates designed one already. Proust did one. A box of cards with questions, or is it more like a scheme that you have to follow in order to get to the important themes? What does it look like? Well,
it's meant not to be a questionnaire. It's just to start discussions. So the questions, the box with questions, or all the cards, are meant to trigger discussion, to bring about stories about people's lives. So it's not every interview is different. It's just what comes up in the interview and where you go deeper into. And we encourage people to draw their lives, or we draw ourselves as designers about their lives. So that brings up more. Also questions from the people you interview, and we often work with interpreters. So if you draw things, you have a direct line of communication to the participant.
This might be the nice moment to talk to Madhab, and he's in India right now. Madhab.
Yeah.
There you are.
Tell me.
Madhab, tell me, you were working already quite long as a researcher before you got this tool, this kit. Can you tell me, what did it do for you? How did it help? Or how did it not help?
Yeah, the interview, that was, Annemarie rightly pointed out, it was not purely a questionnaire kind of thing. It's basically interacting and listening. And she also used different cards and kind of other material that she can directly communicate with us. And this is a very good tool. Normally, yes, I also learned how when there is a language problem, because in India, if you you travel 100 kilometers, you will get a different kind of language. So at the place where people don't know your language, how to communicate with them. And then questionnaire was otherwise I felt it's good, and I also. And then I think another point I want to mention that the interview that hello. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. See let me explain. The interview was with different sets of people. Now, one set of interview that Annemarie took is with the reeler, the woman. So there she used different tools, like there was interpreter. There are two. No, I mean, first Annemarie told in English, then the interpreter converted into local language, and the woman heard of it, responded, and then again it was process. But slowly, initially there was some hesitation, but slowly the women got opened up and they shared about their problems, particularly this drilling machine and other thing. That is, see, machine for a woman, it's their asset. See, normally in India, women don't have much of assets. So, but this drilling machine is an asset for her. So she opened up very nicely and told what the problems are, and then ultimately the whole thing, the effectivity and other thing got captured. So this is one set of interview. Another set of interview was with me and people like us who can communicate in English. So there was a direct communication regarding the machine and other thing. I mean, one thing that I could learn is that when there are people who don't know you and who don't know your language and other thing, how to communicate with them with direct through interpreters and different charts and different pictures to know exactly the lives of women and their problem they are facing and how these machines actually help them.
Okay, thank you, Madhab from India. I didn't understand everything he said, but there was also some connection problem here and there. But I think what he said is it's important to talk directly to people, and what you said is not an interview, but you have to communicate in different ways. And
I think one important thing he said is that gradually during the conversation the women started to open up. So in first instance they are a bit hesitant to share their whole life with you, but because you have this conversation, they started to open up and share more about their lives.
We talked about a few cases that needed innovation before. You used this kit to really find out what people wanted. You, for instance, said that it's important that people think it's a good prosthesis before they start. It shouldn't be cheap. It shouldn't look cheap. In India, it was more important that it looked natural, so people see you as a person with two legs. You also talked about toilets. It has to be on the outside because you don't want it to be on the inside, or in some cases it has to be on the inside while you don't want it to be on the outside. That's very important because people need to go there and need to want to go there. You also talked about the stove, which was an old invention, a stove that is faster and easier to use, but somehow didn't come across. What was the innovation needed there, and how did you get there?
Well, there are multiple stove projects. One stove, for instance, was that it's not the one in the article, but the Philips Chula. It's a clay stove. The problem with stoves is people can make themselves their own stove with clay, and they use it often in the house, so a lot of smoke comes in, and that's not so good for especially women's health. Philips designed with a local NGO, non-governmental organization, a stove that consisted out of multiple parts. Because what they found is that sometimes if a part of the stove breaks, the stove has to be replaced fully, but that has to be on a specific day. It has to be brought in the house, and it goes with a lot of festivities. And but if they make it out of different parts and one part is broken, you can just replace the part. You don't need a whole new stove to bring in the house. So that's the kind of thing that I wouldn't think about in first instance.
Now, I would say that if you have such a kit, what you're basically doing is some kind of marketing research. It's what every company would do if they have any kind of innovation. Before Philips would build a new machine of whatever kind, or before Apple would bring in a new cell phone or whatever, they would do this kind of research. Is that in essence what you designed, a marketing tool?
Well, you can view it in that way. I think the biggest difference is that we urge you to marketing research is often, well, I'm not a marketing expert, but it's a questionnaire. People fill it in. You try to gather a lot of data from a lot of people, and this kit is more. You have to go there. You have to talk to the people. You have to feel the culture. You have to see how people live, what they do. So it's not only this kit that you use to interview. You also have to be there and talk to people, observe people. And this kit specifically is used to get this specific insights. You cannot. This is an interview that takes around 2 hours. Once it took me 5 hours to complete the interview because people like to chat a lot, so it takes a lot of time. You cannot question hundreds of people about it. So you ask different people, a man in his 50s, a girl, a woman, I don't know, different jobs, different age, and you try to get out some specific, well, mainly cultural things to incorporate in your design.
Because the important lesson is that people are not always rational, that something might be the best design, but people can choose differently. I had a conference about music last week, and they talked about LP records, and the innovators were stunned that everybody now wants to listen to vinyl LP records, and they don't choose the better product, which is the CD in their observation. And I think it works the same way for lots of innovations, that it's not always the mind that wins over the heart or the culture or other things. Did the kit help you? Because you would have done the research anyway. Was it a practical tool for you?
Now, in the end, we didn't use the toolkit because we made the toolkit, and we make some changes in it, and then we took it with us to Colombia, and it was a really small toolkit, and it was in our laptop bag, but unfortunately the bag was stolen, so we didn't use the toolkit at all. However, we really used the steps, so starting with the daily life of someone that's easy to share. Then we took the kind of themes and questions, so that the way of thinking we really used. And I think the most important step, listing priorities, yeah, we also did that. So we did all the steps of the opportunity kit, although we didn't have the opportunity kit with us. And in the end, we concluded that the biggest problem in Colombia was that not that there was no prosthesis or no good prosthesis, but that the accessibility of prosthesis were the problem. So we designed a new way to make prosthesis, so more people can access prosthesis care. So that, yeah, it helped us.
Because they don't have to fly to a hospital that is far away. They don't have to leave home, leave their work behind to get their prosthesis. That was the difference it made. Okay, thank you very much for now.